Marianne's professional background includes launching a successful advertising agency, running a busy communication shop for the BC government, researching educational institutes in the United Arab Emirates, and conducting professional development workshops for teachers in BC, China, Africa, and Vietnam. She has a breadth of communications experience in the private and public sectors as communication director, communications and corporate relations manager, project manager, and public relations director. Marianne started her post-secondary education by earning a Bachelor of Education with distinction from the University of Alberta. After earning a Master of Education degree from UVic, specializing in adult education and the use of technology in education, she held positions with the provincial government and then came to Royal Roads to teach. Marianne.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. I arrived a little bit early today, and I noticed a sign here that says, "What you learn here matters out there." I think it's directed to the students, but I did think that as instructors, we could just change this very little. What you learn there matters here. And I think that that is what we as associate faculty bring, and I'm really pleased to see that our teaching and learning model honors that. When I first heard about the idea of bringing professional experience to the Royal Roads classroom, the first thing that came to mind was some feedback that I had from some of my students in the MA in professional communication. And we all read those very avidly when we get our feedback. And 2 students had said, "I wish that Marianne had brought more of her professional expertise to the classroom." Words to that effect. And I instantly thought, I'm going to start doing a little bit more of that. So I've tried to make some changes. A couple things I thought when I looked at this concept, what kinds of experiences are going to be appropriate to share? Definitely teaching diving in the Caribbean. Yeah, I think that's really appropriate. But which are not appropriate. There may be some, so you have to sift through your repertoire, your history, your background, and think about which ones would you use. Why would you use them? Why would you share your experience? How is this going to benefit the students? And are there possible pitfalls? I'm thinking here of protecting the privacy of some of the people that you may have worked with in the past. And finally, how? So what are some strategies for sharing your expertise? And how might you incorporate those kinds of experiences into your lessons? So originally, I had hoped that we'd all have time to talk about this, because I know that each of us would have different answers to these questions. Having a limited period of time, I thought, well, I'll give you my answers, but I know you can add to them, so just maybe mentally add to them yourself. First thing is, why would you do this? I think that we want our students to be thoughtful and able to think critically, and by giving them some experiences that might not have been 100% positive, I often will ask my students, I'll stop and say, what would you do in this instance? And then get them to, I say, yeah, well, I wish I'd had you sitting on my shoulder when that happened, because I didn't think of the right answer. We also want them to be able to communicate information from a broad knowledge base. So when we're talking about theorists and then we apply it, we can see that maybe that theorist doesn't make sense. Maybe there's another one that would be better. Of course, the practical application of the theory. We want our students to be able to contribute to society, and we want their learning to be able to contribute to their career. Many times they will find themselves in similar situations and hopefully be able to make use of these, of my mistakes or my experience. I think that our students will gain satisfaction. I've seen the light go on a couple times when I have, for example, given a case study, and they talk about it and they get different perspectives and they say, oh, I hadn't thought of that. They're better prepared, really, to be successful, I think. And the principles, I think being respectful of others and seeing other perspectives, having that opportunity to discuss something in an objective way. And finally, the rights and responsibilities that they have as members of society. The what what exactly kinds of experiences are going to be helpful. I think as in all instances of communication, we have to think of what is the purpose and who is our audience. So I use different experiences for different classes and different courses. Some of the strategies I use are pictures, I use case studies, I use stories, I use quotations. Can think of many more examples, like Bob was saying, metaphors and so on. I think it's imperative that we do teach these kinds of skills. These are just some of the things that I came up with, and I'm sure that all of you can think of other reasons. I think I got a 1 minute mark already. Oh, I can't believe it. I go by Gadamer, and not only because he and I share the same birthday, but I also, well, except he was born a few years before me. But I love that concept of the nature of human understanding and theory informing practice, practice informing theory, and that whole cycle of experiential lessons, learning, and so on. I've got a couple of samples of case studies that I've used with students, and so if you want these slides, you can definitely have them, but I think you have ones of your own. These are just, I changed the names and the situations slightly to protect the guilty and get the students to talk about ethics, get the students to talk about communication situations and so on. Here's another one. When I teach tourism, I bring in my lived experience in a slightly different way. Pictures that I have taken from different countries. I'll show them and I'll ask people, okay, how can you tell what country that is? Obviously my son, when we went to Australia, and this one is, oh, anybody want to guess? Nope. It's Parksville. But these are for the business of tourism. I mean, you can use your own slides for different purposes, and many people do. This one, obviously, from United Arab Emirates. And then I ask them to look for clues sometimes, depending on what I'm teaching. So, palm trees, but there's an American flag there too. That's Florida. Mount Washington, if you've been up there, and finally rural Alberta. So these are used for different purposes, and the nice thing about using your own slides, you don't have to get copyright permission. I'm giving myself permission. So I would just ask you I'll leave you with a few questions that you can think about. How important is that idea of bringing your own professional expertise or your lived experience to the classroom? What is our imperative here at Royal Roads? Must we change, or are we doing things all right? How do we activate that opportunity? What strategies might you use? I think the possibilities are endless. Thank you.